All right, all right. Hi, everybody. Welcome back after lunch. Everybody got some food? You're feeling satiated? Bellies are full? Mouths full? No? Okay. Thanks for coming. If I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you, my name is Devon Ferreira. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer here at Ava Labs. And super excited to be here with you guys at our first ever Creates. I think we're in day 4 now and going strong. So thanks for showing up. I want to introduce you to my colleague.
Hey everybody, my name is Kitty Like a Cat. I'm an art director here at Ava Labs and excited to bring a creative conversation to Avalanche Creates.
One of the things that we were talking about as we were thinking through the skills and the muscles that we needed to help you guys exercise at Creates is an area that I think is often overlooked or is maybe something that people try to superimpose late in the process, and that's design. And so today we want to maybe open the aperture a little bit and encourage you to think about design in a way that's a little more broad than perhaps you typically have thought about it. So, not to be too cryptic about it, in the next 30 minutes we're going to teach you some practical skills and some ways of thinking that we hope are going to result in better products and greater adoption, which I think is also something that's important for you guys. But we're also going to talk about not just what is design, but how do we recognize good design? I think that in our industry, design is a little bit poorly understood, maybe, is a nice way of saying it. Does anybody know who this man is? St. Peter? No. That is Dieter Rams. Yes, exactly. Free T-shirt for the man with the B hat. That is Dieter Rams, exactly. And for those of you who don't know Dieter Rams, you definitely know his work, and I'm going to show that to you in a minute. So Dieter is still alive. I think he's 90 years old now. He's a famous German industrial designer. He's well known for all the work that he did at a consumer electronics company that was very popular in the mid-century, last century, called Braun, B-R-A-U-N. And he is one of the most prominent members of the functionalist school of thought in the world of design. And so the notion of less is more or less is better, in Dieter's words, is really something that comes out of that school of thought. And he's also well known as being a primary figure of inspiration for the famous Jony Ives, the Apple designer that brought us many of the products we love. Now, I'm going to give you the first secret to design, and that is that the key to creativity is concealing your sources. It's a bit cheeky, but I mean, it comes to life in some of these examples. Right, so if you look at where Jony Ives got some of his ideas, that's a wireless on the left, my right, your left, that Dieter Rams produced, and that's one of the early Apple towers. This here is a range and the early iPod setup. Are you starting to see a pattern here? That's convenient. Okay, pay attention is what it's saying. I mean, some of these are just so close to be like, come on, dude, you get to be a bit more creative, right? And this is my favorite. Look at this one. Is that surprising? So you guys, some of you may have seen this. This has been around for a long time. And there's no shame in this, right? So the thing that you should remember from this is that design begins with inspiration. And we can take inspiration from everything, from one another, from nature, from physical products, from fields that are completely unrelated. But you can only do that if you understand the problem. And so with that being said, let's move on to something a little bit more practical. So you know who Dieter Rams is now, you know who copied him, and obviously we want to pay attention because we all love using those products, right? Any Apple haters here? No. Okay. Oh, well, Jamari in the back, one. Thank you, sir. You can leave now. Thank you. No, you're good. Please don't. All right, so Kitty, let's talk through what good design is. I mean, like, if you had to say good design, how would we recognize it? Does anybody want to take a shot at that? How would you know if design's good? Yes. The what?
Don't make me think.
Don't make me think. That's a very interesting one. I think we probably have something under here like that. But maybe the obvious one. Yes, gentlemen.
Good design is intuitive.
Intuitive, yes. That's fair enough.
It's beautiful.
Beautiful. Beautiful. That comes up a lot. When we think of design, and I call it design with a small d, but we think of this first piece, and it's an important piece. Aesthetic. Why is that important in design, Kitty? You're an art director, right? And your job is to make things beautiful. So let's talk about this for a second.
Yeah, I mean, one point I'd like to make about aesthetics, that is the first thing you think about design because you're looking at it. So one example I wanted to give for this is if this entire screen, the background was green, the icons were red, the text was red, you wouldn't be able to read it, you wouldn't want to look at it, it hurts your eyes. So you need to make sure things look good for sure, but we have a bunch of other design principles to talk about.
That's right. I mean, our eyes are on the front of our head. They're very important, like biologically speaking, right? The things that catch our attention, that catch our eyes' attention, have our attention. And so that's why aesthetics are important, but it's only one of 10 principles that we want to talk to you about. So what else is good design? Good design is long-lasting. Why is that important?
Yeah, so another example for this, I'm not sure if anybody has seen the lobster font that came out in about 2015. A lot of people were really excited to use this one font. Everybody used it, and within a year, you could tell that those designs were very old, very outdated, and very trend-based. Another example we talked about was the Pamela Anderson barbed wire tattoo. You can tell the age of people that have that tattoo now. It was trend-based, very badass. But you want to make sure that the design you're using is not on trend and can last.
That's right. I mean, there's countless examples in fashion of great design that lasts, right? The classic, the LBD in fashion, the little black dress. It's eternal because that style persists. So good design lasts. We work in an industry where things change all the time. So you might be saying, Devon, that doesn't make any sense because this technology is evolving so fast. But remember, the solution to the problem and the way that you implement that in real life could be different through new technologies. But elegant solutions and great design will persist regardless of how technology evolves. Another very important part, environmental friendliness. I mean, we're in California. We don't have to go into this anymore. But, you know, Dieter was pretty forward-thinking when he came up with this principle. This is a while back now, before this stuff was so in our faces. Unobtrusive. What do you think he's getting at here, Kitty?
Unobtrusive, meaning when you look at the design, you understand what it is, you know how to use it, you're not confused, and it's not taking up space or mental power. You just get it.
It's easy. This is the thing. As human beings, we are lazy. We do not like to think. When you make people think, you lose their attention. There's a saying, if you confuse, you lose. So don't make them think. Like our friend here said, right? Good design doesn't make you think. It's just obvious. It's unobtrusive. There's nothing else in the way. Whoa. Like these cables. What else we got here? It's innovative. This is such a catch-all word. I hate this word. I hated it for a long time until I stumbled across a definition from Dean Kamen. You guys know Dean Kamen? He invented the Segway. Do you remember that thing? Paul Blart, Mall Cop, anyone? No? Anyway, he invented the Segway, and he had a really interesting definition. He said that for something to be truly innovative, it has to meet two conditions. One, it needs to enable something that you just could not do before. So not do it slightly better, but just was fundamentally not possible. I think this is really interesting for people in our field because there's so much that we're building here for the very, very first time. There might be people in this room who are creating something that's never existed before or allows us to do something that we just couldn't do before. That's the first mark of innovation. His second one, which is a bit of a higher bar for us to cross, is that it needs to be broadly adopted to be a true innovation. So let's just say that the things we're doing in the industry writ large maybe are, you know, aspiring to be innovative, on a good path, right? But if you believe Dan Kamen. So I think Dieter also recognized this pretty early on, is that you want something that's going to fundamentally allow your user to do something that they just can't do today. And if you find yourself stumbling across that, like, I don't know, building a DEX that's based on, instead of fragmented liquidity and multiple paired pools, you have a single pool with multi-assets. If anyone's got any good ideas about that, Eric Forgy's already a few steps ahead of you, so go and talk to him. But that's the kind of thing that we want to kind of veer towards, right? Let's see, what else we got up here? Thorough. This is something that we spoke about quite a lot in prepping for this presentation, right? So why is this important in design? Isn't design just like foofy, airy-fairy stuff? What's with all this thoroughness? This sounds like a left-brain activity. Let's talk about it.
This is something I work a lot with my team at Ava Labs. So you can make something that looks pretty and hope that your users will like it, or you can do a bunch of research and make sure that it's going to work. And so that's one thing I like to say a lot about design, especially when I'm describing my job to my parents. 80% of it is research, understanding the market, understanding what you're doing and those trends, and about 20%, 10% is actually creation. So you need to be thorough within that research and understanding your product, your market, to be able to make your design work.
I think design's a little different from engineering in that sense, right? I would imagine when you're building something, you know all the pieces that you have to build, you could plan them out, you work on them methodically, check things off the list. Design is different. Good designers are good detectives. They're very curious. They spend a lot of time asking questions, watching, taking notes, thinking, and then, you know, in the 2 hours before the deliverable, they quickly do all the work. That's the creative process, if you've seen a chart. But there's a reason for that. It's because as engineers, and I started my career as an engineer, you should know that. I went to engineering school. That's the reason I came to the States. But we tend to jump to a solution, and we tend to generalize, and this is not just specific to engineers, but we see it a lot in engineering, is we tend to generalize our personal experiences. And so we start off with an idea, we sit down and we build something, and then we're like, okay, this is cool, I'm going to add this. This seems like it's going to make sense, and we kind of build from the inside out, right? We're going to talk about it as we get a bit deeper. You want to think more from the point of view of, okay, well, if you're just building something because you want to build something, that's great. But if you want to build something that's going to be bred to, from the word go, for adoption, you really need to spend time doing this thorough research and asking questions and making observations and thinking through how you're going to be solving problems for your audience. If you don't do that, you're likely to fall short. Which one was this? You want to talk about this one? Okay, I got it. So one of my favorite sayings is that people don't choose the best tech. They choose the tech that they can understand the quickest. That's not universally true. There are people out there learning Rust. We know that, okay? But that's a great technology. But I think that if you're building something to be used by somebody who's not highly technical, you really need to make it easy to understand. Otherwise, you run the risk of it becoming irrelevant to them because it takes too much work. Remember what I said? Don't make me think, right? Make it simple. Make it easy to understand. If you do, you're halfway there. Which one was here? I have to figure out which. It's like one of those games. Honest. What is he talking about here, Kitty?
We were trying to find the best example for this. And so one example I had, if you buy a Mountain Dew and there's Dr. Pepper inside of it, that's dishonest design. So you want to design something that you understand what it is and it's honestly what you're trying to create.
Yeah, how about organic labels on food? We didn't think about that one, right? But how many products out there are organic? Like, what does that mean, right? Or fresh? Well, was fresh at one time. There was a funny commercial about that, remember? So, you know, I think good design, which translates into good storytelling, is another way of saying marketing, right, is honest. It's straightforward. It doesn't misrepresent what it is. So think carefully about that. Useful. A product that's not useful is useless, I suppose, right? And we don't want those. So not much to say there. And then this is my favorite. As little design as possible. Do we have any sports fans here? Avery. Don't say running. You're a runner. But what's your favorite sport outside of running?
Basketball.
Basketball. Who's your favorite umpire?
Tom Brady.
He's not an umpire. It's a different sport, but anyway. But the point is that, like, probably most people cannot name their favorite umpire. Why is that? Because they're good umpires. Umpires are not supposed to be noticed. If you're watching a game and you notice the referee, he's probably calling too many things that he shouldn't call, right? Like a great referee is one you just don't notice. And that's the same with design. Like if you notice the design, if it's too much, it's overbearing, then you're probably missing the mark. So now you guys are all experts on how to recognize good design. You should take this framework, and I'll give you some links at the end, and go back and map this against your product. And be honest with yourself about where you're scoring well and where you're not scoring. Be honest about yourself also, what's important to your audience, to your target user. And be thorough as you do that. Okay, so it's grounded in empathy. We've established that. You need to understand what people want if you want to deliver an elegant solution to that problem, hence design. And this is also the key to good storytelling. Let's talk about these guys. Does anybody use Tidal in this room? Does anybody know what Tidal is? Okay, we all know it's a streaming music platform. It was built in 2014, and it got a lot of early press because it had backers that included Jay-Z and a bunch of other famous artists. Do you remember what their unique selling proposition was, or what was the newness of Tidal and why it was better than Spotify? Gentleman in the back?
Yeah, something like they were more representative to the artists themselves, or like more of a communal artist-owned platform.
Yeah, exactly. So the basic story there is Spotify screws the artists because they don't pay them anything, right? So Tidal's different. Tidal's going to put more money in the artist's pocket. That sounds like a great story, right? Right? Tidal has 5 million users. That's a lot of people, right? Everybody in this room would love to have 5 million users. But Spotify, 175 million users. What's going on here? Kitty, what is going on here? What did these guys do? They made a mistake, right?
So they made the mistake of thinking they knew what the users wanted rather than researching and understanding that.
That's right. And they also made the mistake of thinking that their product was the hero of the story. It's not. The problem was that when they launched this, and Jay-Z and all these famous, rich rappers come out, and they're like, finally, a platform that's going to give us our fair share. And everybody there that's going to be downloading the music's thinking, dude, you've got your fair share. Like, you're rich. Like, you don't need any more money from me. Make it cheaper for the user. The hero is not Jay-Z. Tidal is not the hero. The person listening to the music is the hero of the story. That's a really important point. The next time you see a product ad and it's going on about feature after feature after feature, all it's talking about is itself. A lot of people that don't really understand marketing make that mistake. They think that the product is the hero. It's not. The product is something else, which we're going to explain to you in a second. Should we play the game? Star Wars fans, anyone? Okay, you guys, hopefully you know the story better than I do. You can help us construct this. So who's the main character in Star Wars? Luke Skywalker. Okay, great. If you haven't seen Star Wars, I have nothing to say to you. But Luke Skywalker is the main character. He's the hero of this story, right? And so what happens in Star Wars? Somebody want to tell me? It starts off with there's something going on, right? Luke has a problem, or there is a problem. What is the problem? You guys remember?
Yeah, he got some droids.
He got
Droids did some part of the nefarious thing.
a nefarious thing. Well, there was that problem, but I think there was also this other problem of like an existential threat to the universe. I think there was that going on as well. Oh, that. So let's focus on that one. So there was a problem, right? So we've got a character with a problem. And what happened next? He met somebody. Who did he meet? Obi-Wan. He met Obi-Wan. We'll call Obi-Wan a guide. So if your product is not the hero, what is your product? Your product's not Luke Skywalker. Your product is Obi-Wan. Your product is the guide. And that guide did what? He gave Luke Skywalker a plan. Right? He went and dropped him off on, what was the place where he had to go upside down and learn from Yoda? Yes, whatever you said. Yes, that. And so he met this guy who gave him a plan. He told Luke, you've got to go and do this thing, right? And we all know how it ended. He was famously successful. You know, he killed the Death Star and he avoided this tragic ending. Yes, sir.
I think he was identified the problem. The problem is he wanted an existential growth. He was sitting there looking at double moons, double stars, just he wanted out. And the guide was the person who provided it.
That's right.
And the only reason I say it is our old boss greenlit Star Wars, so I'm kind of predicting.
Amazing. Well, apologies for butchering the treatment and the storyline, but that's exactly right. He had these goals, and the problem was he didn't have any way to get there. He met this guide who could help him get to this journey. He was trying to get here, but he didn't know how. And that's the same for each one of your users. They're trying to get to this promised land, and they're very scared of this thing. You have to figure out what that is. But your job, your product's job, is to take them on that journey and to help them overcome it. This is a story brand framework. There are many story building frameworks, but practically they all bubble down into something very similar to this. I'll give you some resources at the end. I'd encourage you guys to go and spend some time. If you put this perspective on top of your product, you'll immediately change the way you're thinking about it. So this is where we get to the more hands-on side of things, right? Up until now, I think it's probably been an interesting presentation. Is that fair to say? Okay, so now it's going to get a lot more like businessy, so just bear with me. It doesn't stay this way for too long. But we want to teach you a technique called value proposition design. I didn't name it. I probably would have given it a different name, but that's what it's called. And this is basically an empathy hack, right? It's a way for us to very quickly understand and do a shortcut on the thoroughness that Kitty is so heavily encouraging us to undertake. And it's a quick hack for us to get inside the minds of our users and figure out what it is that they're trying to do. Circles and squares. Kitty, what are we looking at here?
Circles and squares.
That's right. Okay. Tell us about the circle. What is the circle?
So this circle is our customer. So we have what they want to gain from this product, what their pains are, and what jobs they need to have done for them, or what they need to do. And then we have our product side. So we have what our product does to relieve those pains that they have. How do we create gains for them? And what are these services that we're creating that both gain and pain relieve?
Okay, so circles and squares is something that is, and that's such a better name than value proposition design. But anyway, circles and squares, and if we have some time at the end, and even if we don't have some time later when things are done, we actually have a value map over here. We've got Sharpies and we have Post-it notes, and we'd be happy to work through some examples. If we have some time at the end, we'll do that with you. But this is a great framework because you start here, okay? Although we read left to right, you got to work backwards. That's another way of thinking about design. Outside in, not inside out. And we're going to start talking about jobs. This gentleman, do you guys know who he is? Clay Christensen? Yes, Clay Christensen, the father of disruptive innovation, the overused term from the consulting industry. He did a lot of amazing work. He's a giant in his field, also a giant in real life, 6'8", this guy. Passed away, sadly, in 2020, a professor at HBS, and did a lot of work to popularize. He didn't invent it. It's a common misconception, but he popularized a framework called jobs to be done. And we're going to talk a little bit about what jobs to be done means. But his whole thesis was that people hire products and services, the things that you guys are building. People are going to buy those or use them because they are trying to do a job. Okay? And this is a different way of thinking about your user other than, doing the traditional demographics-based personas. Like, oh, this person is 6'3" and is a, Caucasian female, and so she loves basketball. Maybe, but maybe not, right? So this is going to be a framework that's going to be a good friend to you. And I want to tell you a story about milkshakes because that's going to help. Milkshakes always help, in my experience. Vanilla or chocolate? Just quick show of hands. Hands for vanilla. Chocolate? It's kind of 50. I think vanilla has it. I think vanilla's got it. Anyway, so famous fast food chain, right, in the South. Not happy with milkshake sales. Want to sell more milkshake. So they take Kitty's advice and they go and do some research and they ask all their customers, what is it that you want in a milkshake? Or what's your favorite milkshake? Vanilla, chocolate, with froth, a bit colder, a bit warmer, And then they map that back into, okay, we think we know the answers. These type of people like these type of milkshakes. We get more of these customers, so let's produce more of these milkshakes. How do you think that went? It didn't go well. No real change. No real change, right? So they did what Kitty said, they went and did the research, and nothing happened. When they decided to flip the script a little bit and think about it differently, they said, all right, well, let's go and ask people what job they're trying to fulfill with the milkshake. What job is the milkshake doing for them? They found two very interesting things. They found that the majority of their milkshake sales happened at certain times of the day. And when they asked people why they bought a milkshake at 8:30 or 7:45 in the morning, they realized that a lot of people were commuting for work. And if you don't drink coffee in your car, what do you drink? Maybe you drink soda, or maybe you drink milkshake. A lot of people were buying milkshakes to have something to do while they listened to talk radio on the way to a job that they didn't want. Hopefully it was a bit less depressing than that. But that was the one big use case. And that had nothing to do with their race, their gender, their age, their weight. It had to do with the job they want the milkshake to do for them. There was another interesting job. In the evening, they would see a surge. A lot of single parents don't have time to cook a proper meal for their kids. So what do on the way home? They pick up fast food. But what kind of shitty parent feeds a kid fast food every day? The kind of shitty parent that makes up for it by buying a milkshake for the kids. So that was the other major use case. Again, nothing to do with age, nothing to do with race. So this is why personas don't get you to a place where you're going to have a good outcome. You have to understand why people are buying that product, right? So with that understanding, we can go back to the value map.
Yes, so we're back to the circle part of things, which we already talked about. Demographics don't matter. Milkshakes do jobs, which I love that phrase. And then I also wanted to talk about the two types of jobs. So there's the functional job, which we already know what they need. We know what they need to do. We have the supporting jobs, so those are what help that person get to where they want to go and what they need to do. But we also have to think about the internal. So we have the personal, so how they feel and what that product makes them feel, and what that social aspect is. So one example that Devon brought up is shoes. No one needs Louboutins. You want Louboutins.
My wife would disagree with that, but...
You want Louboutins. Anybody here that's worn them, they really actually hurt a lot, but they make you feel incredible. So they have that internal, they're giving you personal gratification, they're giving you the social status that you think you get from these shoes, but you don't actually need the shoes. There could be any other shoe that is functional, and there could be any other job that's helping you to support to buy the shoes.
Kitty's making a really important point here, guys, because this thing here, these internal jobs, mostly are neglected, but yet they're most of the reason that people choose the products or services that they hire. So this is another big mistake that entrepreneurs make. They think that most of our decisions are made here. They're not. We make decisions here, and then we command this thing to justify it. If you don't believe it, just think back to every bad decision you made in life and the story you told yourself about why you did it. Decisions happen here, and that happens in daily life, but it also happens when people are at work or they're trying to do something. So because we're so left-brain oriented as technologists and builders that are trying to create something, we're focused on functionality and what the thing does, we forget that it's also doing other stuff, right? So this isn't universally true, and I know I'm probably taking a little bit of creative license here in saying something like this, but it's oftentimes a place where you can unlock some real differentiation. I guarantee whatever product you're building, your competitors most likely are not spending time thinking about this, and you should, because we sell solutions to external problems, but people buy solutions to internal problems. Okay, so we just went through this. You know, we just released a core wallet. Have you guys used it? Has anybody tried that? It's a great product, and it does, you know, basic things that you would expect a wallet to do, right? But we spent a lot of time thinking about how to improve the user experience, because when people are trying a crypto wallet for the first time, of course it should be able to support a swap. Of course it should be able to, you know, send tokens to someone. But we also try to make it easier for people, because for a newbie to crypto, I always like to say crypto is unique in that, like, you really have to mean it, right? If anyone here remembers when you first got into crypto, even just to understand it, you got to mean it, right? So there's a lot of people out there that kind of want to get involved, but they're afraid. What are they afraid of? They're afraid of looking stupid. They're afraid of having a conversation about this because they don't know what it is. They don't understand it. And they haven't taken the time to learn it, so they're intimidated. And even if they can figure it out, what else are they afraid of? They're like, well, what if I screw something up and I lose all my money? You know? They're not thinking about, man, I wish this was easier to swap a token, you know? They're not thinking about those functional jobs. They're thinking about the things that are preventing them from stepping over the line. And if you spend a bit of time thinking about these internal jobs, you'll have a leg up on your competitors. So, with that being said, how are we doing for time, Rocky? We're good? Should we try to do a little exercise? Who wants to try to put some of the stuff into action? We haven't rehearsed this part, so it might go sideways. If we do, I'll do a dance, we'll wrap it up, we'll put music on and bring in the ice cream, and we'll call it quits. But if it's going well, we can keep it rolling. Yeah. Yeah, I want everybody to participate. But before we do that, does anybody have any thoughts or any questions about some of the things that we've spoken about, or clarifications before we jump into this little exercise? Ilya. By the way, Ilya,
Yeah.
can you stand up for a second?
Yeah.
Can you introduce yourself to everybody?
Hi, I'm Ilya.
Ilya, where do you live?
I live in Tampa.
You live in Tampa, and you flew all the way here. Are you just in the area for fun, or why did you come here?
No, for this conference.
You came all the way here
Yeah.
to spend this time with us. Thank you, Ilya. Great. All right. Do we have any other questions? No, I'm joking. Go ahead.
So my question is, how do you reach to this part of person? Because it's easy to reach to like brain of the person, but how do you like ask yourself? Because when I'm thinking like why users need my product, I'm thinking with my brain. How to think with your heart?
You need to keep thinking, and you need to think about the areas that you're not. You're focused on, like most people, the external jobs, the functional jobs. Why is somebody what are they trying to do? You need to go one step further and think about the internal problem that they're solving. So the reason that we gravitate towards features and functionality is because it's a little more specific. It's a bit more concrete, right? Somebody wants to swap a token. But it's also important that you keep going down that journey and you say, okay, well, what's really going on in this person's head? What's preventing them from taking action? What else are they trying to solve for here? Yes, when you buy a car, the functional job is I'm trying to get from point A to point B. But if I'm a parent, the job I'm trying to satisfy is the internal problem is I don't want my kid who's sitting in the back to die because this thing is made out of a sardine can. I want a car that's safe, right? So that's an internal problem that you're solving. And so it's just about perspective. This is the unrehearsed part. Don't get nervous. But if you, everybody do me a favor. Point up at the ceiling and look at the tip of your finger. Okay? Now I want you to trace the face of a clock going from 12 through 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 12. Just get that going at whatever, just as if the clock's on the roof. Yeah, as if the clock is on the roof, right? Okay, so you're going around? Okay, keep going around, keep going around. So which direction are we going? We're going clockwise, right? Okay, now keep moving your finger and look at me. Okay, now as you're looking at me, bring your finger down, keep turning it, bring it down below you. Now look down. Which direction is it going? Counterclockwise. Okay. I mean, so what changed? Your perspective changed. You're looking at the same thing, Ilya, but you need to look at it from the other side of the room. Okay.
I have a practical example to add to that
Yes,
question.
do it. Let's go.
One thing that I can help visualize beyond the amazing brain thing we just did. If you think about cell phone commercials, if you think about Samsung, the Google phone, and the iPhone, they all have the same functions, different things, but can anybody think about what all of these commercials are showing on screen? Photos of families, your friends, you're out having a good night. They're selling the emotion of the phone. The need is to be able to capture those memories in the best way possible. So iPhone has better resolution, portrait mode. Google phone has the magic eraser, but they're all selling you that feeling of being able to want to capture that moment and live that life versus selling you just this phone does this, has this CPU, da-da-da-da-da. So you think about the emotional side of things.
Okay. All right. Yes. Do I say Zhao? Is that how it's Zhao?
Yes, I do. I have indeed questions. While we're keeping users' needs,
While we keep users' needs and excellent design components in mind, how do we ensure business requirements are met and product market fit? Well, that's a good question. Does anybody want to volunteer an answer? I have one, but I'm just curious. To me, those are the same thing. You can't get product market fit if you don't know what your user wants. And if there's a business requirement that's not ultimately geared towards delivering value to the person that's going to use the products that you're producing, I would say it's a requirement you should probably ignore. Unless it comes from legal, in which case you better comply. But I think those two things are the same, right? And it's the difference between inside-out thinking versus outside-in. Why do we build the things we do? Because we had an idea? Okay, great. But if you want something that's innovative, that Dean Kamen will look at and go, yeah, that's innovative, you're going to need something that solves a major problem for people. And my what I would submit is that problem probably lives here. Right? Ilya, something that made me think, you asked that question, how do we start that dialogue? So it's about shifting your perspective, but it's also about being cognizant of the fact that when we deliver presentations or we try to convey new information, everybody tries to speak to the prefrontal cortex, thinking that, if I logically explain this, then surely you will be on my side. That's also known as an argument. Okay? Where we're like, if you would just understand the logic, you would agree with me. Actually, maybe not, right? Because all information does not go into our ears and straight to the front of our brain. Where does it go? It goes to the lizard brain that's existed for tens of thousands of years. And that brain has limited compute power, and it does only 5 functions. Should I eat it? Should I run away? Should I fight it? Should I, complete the sentence? Okay. All right. This is what that lizard brain is thinking about. So, speak to the lizard brain first. And if you get through the lizard brain, then the prefrontal cortex will be like, okay, you got past the bouncer. Maybe I'll pay attention. Make me care. Make me care first before you try to speak to the boss. Okay. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take some Post-its, and we're going to pick a product. We'll do it by consensus. A different type of Avalanche consensus. And what we're going to do is we're going to start by just brainstorming for this product and for the user what jobs these people are trying to do. Okay? Now, a best practice when you try this at home is to try to get connection through the line with the same Post-it notes. So the way to do this in practice, and when I've done this in large groups, you give everybody Post-it notes, and you say, all right, speed round, 2 minutes. Write down as many jobs as you can think of. Functional, emotional, social. What is your user trying to do when they're using your product? Just free flow. Go, go, go. And then look at all those Post-it notes and group them. You'll find that, especially if you do it with some colleagues, a few people will say the same things or very similar things. Group them. And once you've grouped them, you'll probably find that you can boil it up or boil it down. What am I trying to say? You know what I'm trying to say. You can condense it into a handful of jobs or job categories, right? And so let's say we came up with one of those and we said, okay, these are the yellow jobs, right? You group them all and you start a new Post-it and you make it a yellow job. And then you spend some time with that job. You think through what makes it hard for us to do this? What's getting in their way, right? And you write that down on a Post-it. You could also do the brainstorming thing. You could group it again if you want, depending on the size of your team. Now you understand, what are you trying to do? What's getting in your way? What could we do to ameliorate that? And the best ideas flow through here. This is your MVP roadmap right here. You can do this in an afternoon. Then you go back and you go to the next most important job. And I'm going to show you some tools that you can use to figure out which are the most important jobs that my user is trying to accomplish. And focus on delivering against those in the best possible way. Once you've drawn this through line, now you've got a value map. You know exactly how you're going to deliver value to a specific audience member. Now you've got all the ingredients you need to go back and start crafting your story. Remember our 7-story framework? Starting with deep empathy for the people that are using your product and translating that back into something that they'll love. Is this making sense for you guys? It's pretty straightforward stuff. It's pretty straightforward, but it's, we're so focused on doing big things that sometimes we just blow past the simple ones. Yes, sir. Mike.
Yeah. Can you put some names to common points of friction? You're talking a lot about the internal difficulties someone might have to doing a particular job. What are those?
Yeah, I think it's how long is a piece of string, right? To put the question back. I think it depends on the product. So to answer that, I'd suggest if you guys are game, we could take 10 minutes. We don't want to take your whole afternoon, but let's play. Let's try to do a little round and let's go from right to left for a particular product. So who's got any suggestions for what product we want to talk about?
Lawnmower.
A what? Lawnmower. A lawnmower. All right, let's do lawnmower. Shit, I wasn't expecting that, but let's go for it. Anybody? We could do two. Okay, so we have lawnmower, we got core wallet. What else? Anybody else? Apparel. Okay. A video game. Let's. How about let's use core wallet if you don't mind. I think that's something everybody here has used the crypto wallet for the most part. I would imagine, right? So I think we've all got a basic understanding of some of the jobs, right? So let's play with that. Okay, so let's. Who wants to start? What are some of the jobs that a user is trying to accomplish in using a crypto wallet? And let's be specific. Let's call this a browser extension. Fair enough? Non-custodial wallet, that's the product. Jobs. Who wants to start? What you got, Ilya? Don't lose my keys. Okay, that's an important job. That sounds like an internal problem, right? Yeah. Okay. So don't lose my keys. Okay. Great. Let's start with that one. Let's try another one. Different color. What other job? Yes, sir. Buying cryptocurrencies with fiat, like a fiat on-ramp. Okay. I want to buy cryptocurrencies. I don't want to lose all my money. Those are two great examples. One is an external job, functional, and one is an internal job, right? I want to feel secure. I guess there's some functional piece of it too, but I want to make sure my keys are safe, right? Could we call it that? Make sure my keys are safe.
Let's go here.
Yes. No, you're right.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. All right, so let's start with that one. I want to be able to buy crypto. What makes it hard to just buy crypto in a wallet today? Is there anything that gets in the way? Let's talk about some of the friction points to Mike's example.
Yeah, the KYC process. So
KYC, all right. KYC, so we need a blue for KYC. All right, KYC. What else? Mike, any friction points in your experience in buying fiat through a wallet?
Education.
Okay,
for
just
like
understanding
people who just don't know
what to do.
once they have a wallet. Like if you
Okay.
download MetaMask, there's no tooling or documentation.
Let's
or
put
anything.
down, I don't know what to do. That's definitely a problem we're going to have to solve for. Okay. All right. That sounds good. So now we've got buying crypto. We've got a couple of pains. Let's switch text. Let's go back to keeping my keys safe. We're trying to keep the keys safe. This is the job, right? So what makes that hard today? What's that? I've got to remember 12 words. So passwords aren't difficult enough. Now I've got to remember 12 random words that I didn't get to pick. That's kind of a pain. That makes it hard to protect my keys, right? Anything else? What else? Yes, sir.
I don't even know what good security looks like for keys, so it's like an absence of even what a good decision would be.
Yeah. Like I don't even know how to go about accomplishing that job. That's a problem, right? Okay. That's another pain. What else makes it hard to protect your keys? Yes, please.
Encrypted informations could be stored in the cloud, but not.
Okay, so the problem here is I don't know where to store this, right? So you give me this 12-word phrase that's hard enough to remember, and then you tell me, don't cut paste that. What am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to go and etch it in like a tattoo? What, I got to take a piece of paper? We're building the future of the internet, and I'm going to put it on a piece of paper and hide it somewhere in my house? Come on, right? These are problems. These are real problems. And guess what? These are the problems that plague us in crypto because it's a reason we don't have people fly, or it's one of the reasons, right? Okay, so you can see how even just a little bit of thinking is getting us further on the path. Now let's play with that idea. Let's stay on the private keys. So we've got, I don't want to lose my keys, but I don't know how to take care of them because this stuff's complicated. And I've got no convenient way of storing this information, right? So these are problems. So what could we do about that? What could we do about the problem that you identified?
Just giving me a sense of like what good security would even look like.
Okay, so a pain reliever could be like, and a good way to, yeah, education, I suppose, like a tutorial, an explanation of why the keys are important, right? I don't know if that's the greatest solution, but it's a good idea. We should put it on the board. So now, a good way actually to start teasing the pain relievers and to get your brain jogged is to start with a question, how might we? And then put the problem in there, right? So how might we educate people about how to keep their crypto safe? I guess one possible solution might be videos. What does it say? Tutorials. Yeah, video tutorials. Great, you read my mind. This is working. Okay, so that's one solution. Any other solutions for people that don't know how to secure it? Yes, Mike.
I guess education is part of it, but not every project is trying to run like DeFi University. So at what point does marketing your protocol become I have to educate my grandma on DeFi, or I just zero in on my market, like a DeFi degen, someone who's real deep in it, like this kind of line between marketing and education? When do I select who to go for?
Absolutely. You identified an important problem. And the way that we would actually deal with that in design is in the jobs framework, when we decide what are the most important jobs to solve for here. You may be building a product that's like, look, dude, if you can't figure out how to use it, it's not for you. In which case, that doesn't matter. But at the same time, you can't sit back and go, why don't we have mass adoption? And I haven't taken, and it's not about DeFi University. It's like, dude, I just want to know how to use your product. Surely you should be able to explain that to me. So I think that as builders, we need to really look ourselves in the mirror and say, what obligation do I have, if any, to teach people how to use the product that I'm building? And so you may make a deliberate choice to say, I'm not going to teach you, because if you can't figure it out, you're not my customer, and that's okay. But at least it's deliberate. But you'll never make the mistake of saying, I'm not going to teach you, but I want everybody to use it, if you follow this, because that dissonance will be obvious. Yeah. Okay, so tutorials, great. What about the other part, the fiat thing? So what could we do to make onboarding fiat into a wallet easier and simpler? Any ideas there? Okay, so partner with some kind of fiat on-ramp that's super easy, that people trust. Make sure the Visa logo is there, and off they go. Okay. Social proof? Okay. I wonder if social proof could also speak to the internal problem that Ilya brought up, right? Your grandmother explaining why she's okay using it would make other grandmothers feel very comfortable, probably, right? And so you'd be speaking to that internal problem. Anyway, we've just been doing a few minutes of brainstorm, but if you really understand your audience and you care about your product, getting the top thinkers in your team together and spending a half a day on this thing and building a value map is going to be invaluable for you. I can promise you. I want to show you something just before we go, because I think we are over time. These are some resources that I'd encourage you guys to take advantage of. I don't know how I can drag this over, but I just want to show you guys. Here, let me see if I can do this. So if you go to strategizer.com, is this coming in? Hold on. There it is. If you go to strategizer.com, give me 1 second. You can create a free account. And when you log in, you're going to find all these resources. Sorry, I'm trying to navigate on the big one. You're going to find all these resources about value proposition design. There's the canvas. It'll explain to you. There's video tutorials. It'll go into more detail, all the things that we just showed you. I'd encourage you to use it. It's free to create a project. You can actually create this board online. If you have a remote team, you guys can collaborate regardless of where you are, and you can do digital post-its. It gets a bit messy. It's not entirely scalable, but it's a great solution, and I'd encourage you to use it. The other neat thing about this, has anybody heard of a business model canvas? Okay, everybody knows, if you know about that. Anybody else? You've probably heard about it. It's been popular in the Valley for quite a while now and amongst big business, but it's a simple framework along these lines of understanding your business. The thing that you'll notice about this here is, you see this little weird matrix thing at the top? That's actually a small image of the business model canvas. And if you do this exercise, you'll be answering very important questions to begin populating a business model canvas, which is essentially on one page an explanation of who you're building for, what your value proposition is, what you're doing for them, which channels you're using to do it, what partnerships you need to support that, the resources that go into it, how you make money from it, what the cost basis is. This will cause you to think through all the important things you need to think through to succeed as an entrepreneur, but probably are not thinking about because you're an engineer and you're focused on the code. You can build the best product, and if nobody's using it, you're not going to be happy, I promise you. So anyway, that's another talk for another time. But if you do the value prop canvas, it'll lead you into something more. Strategizer will give you all the resources you need to do that. One other thing that I want to show you, if you like the storytelling stuff and you want to learn more about that and getting more effective, I'll encourage you to go to this website called, sorry, we should have used this as an example of problems to solve. Go to My Story Brand, and if you do that, you'll be able to log in and it'll show you, it'll help you craft all these sections at Time Me Out. But if you go there, it's free to use. I mean, they want to capture your email, put in a Proton Mail or whatever. But you can actually go, there's little videos that explain each piece of it, that explains internal problems. Fill it out. Try to build a brand script for your audience. And I guarantee you it will immediately increase the effectiveness of how you're conveying the value that your product delivers. Super valuable for pitches. It's a little bit, I should have given the speech on Monday. Next time we're going to do that. And then I think that's it. There's some other stuff here, but once you get into all the resources, you'll notice, like for example, this is the one thing that I spoke to you about. How do you categorize and prioritize jobs? There's tools like this. It'll provide little scoring sheets. It'll just literally walk you through the process. There's also things in case you get stuck during your brainstorm. Whoops, that's not the other one. That is something I wanted to show you. But there's also resources around like trigger questions. If you're getting stuck and you're wondering, okay, well, what are the jobs really? And you feel like you're coming up with naught. There's little trigger question, things that will prompt you and maybe get a dialogue going. So go create an account at Strategizer. You'll find great value in it. And then finally, I'd encourage you to go read this article. This is where you'll learn about milkshakes and other things. Furniture as well. All the stuff that's relevant to your life as a Web3 builder. But this is a great article in HBR that talks a lot about the work that Clayton Christensen built on to get a better understanding of what your audience needs. That's all we have for you guys. We hope that was helpful. We're going to stick around if there's certain things that you want to play with, if you've got some ideas that you want to try to throw up on the board, or if you have any questions. If anybody has any questions now, I think we could probably take a couple. Yeah?
Where does like doing jobs and finding out the jobs fit with research and going and talking to your customers and getting out of the building? Like, can you just do all of this through thinking of it yourself?
You want to answer that one?
It's a hard one to say exactly you do A and you do B. I think they go hand in hand, and you allow one to inform the other. So you do a little bit of research, go a little, out there, come back. Okay, we have this question, go back. I don't really think it's like, I do this, I'm good.
So the design process, a simpler way of saying what Kitty said is it's not linear, right? And again, we tend to think of, okay, do this, then do that, then do the next thing. In my experience, what's worked well, and before I was here at Ava Labs for the previous 5 years, I ran product and design, and we built bespoke products. So I've used this a lot with massive companies and startups. And what's worked well for me is to get people in this mindset is start with your team and identify what you think are the most important jobs. And then go out and verify that. And the simple way to verify it when you're doing design-led research is to think of it as like be a detective, literally. You got to be curious, and you can be you can be the detective in a few different ways. You can be a journalist, so you can do a kind of like we call it job shadowing or a ride along. Watch somebody use your product. Watch what they do. Look at what they're trying to do. Write it down. We speak of dialos, day in the life of. Follow your audience through, like, what are they trying to accomplish in their job or in that process? Like, watch them, ask them. Or think through it yourself and come up with a first version. You can also be a journalist. You can ask questions. What are you looking for in a crypto wallet? What are the 3 things you do most? So I think if you begin with this process, you'll build an intuition for what you're thinking. And then you go out and you verify that by asking people. So you might come out of that session with your team members and go, man, it seems like all they want to do is this one thing. Like, we've sat here and thought about it for 3 hours, and it's like, it's this. I think it's this. Well, you could turn around at that moment, rush off and build it, but you might be wrong, because even though you've now gone from my individual point of view to our collective point of view, it's still very biased. It's still a bad sample. Go out and verify that. Build an intuition. Use questions to verify that en masse, and there's a lot of consumer survey kind of stuff out there where you can actually be scientific about this, and you can say, okay, my initial thinking has led to these hypotheses. Let me go out and prove that with a quantitative survey, or disprove them, should I say, through a quantitative survey. But there's no one place to begin. It's just immerse yourself in that until you really think you've got the right answer.